It was an ordinary dog, but that night Max would change the lives of the Thompson family and everyone who knew him. That was to be a peaceful evening at the Thompson household. Jack Thompson was sitting in the living room with his wife. A warm glow filled the room as they watched their daughter, Emily, playing with Max, their faithful 3-year-old German Shepherd. Max was no mere pet. He was family. There could never be an unrelenting loyalty, especially to Emily. He would sit by her side, observing each movement intently, always watchful and ready to protect her at any portent of peril. Little did the family know that this night would be anything but ordinary. The quiet evening took a dramatic turn when Max's ears perked up, his body tensed as he lifted his nose, sniffing the air. Unusual smell, a faint trace of smoke wafted through the house. Unbeknownst to anyone, but Max's instincts kicked into high gear. Immediately, the once easygoing dog began pacing. Back and forth, his paws clicked nervously against the wood floor. He looked over to Jack with a sense of urgency, trying to tell him something only he could feel. Max's eyes were intense, unyielding, and full of an unusual focus. Jack frowned at this quirkiness from Max, but before he could dismiss him, Max suddenly darted in the direction of the stairs, looking back as if it were a plea for Jack to follow. Perplexed but trusting his loyal companion, Jack rose from his seat and followed Max out, feeling some unease gather inside him as they made their way toward the upper floor. This annoying smell of smoke was getting heavier. Jack's heart quickened. He was starting to have that nagging feeling that something was very wrong upstairs. Max stopped outside Emily's room, barking softly, but insistently. Jack's heart sank as he opened the door on the source of the smoke, the small flickering flame licking its way along the curtains near Emily's bed. The fire was contained, but the danger there was immediate and horrifying. Jack's brain reeled, trying to process what he was seeing, feeling the urge to shield his daughter. Above all else, he reached for Emily's favorite stuffed animal, a small move to keep her calm in the middle of such chaos. The flames grew, and with them the panic in Jack's chest. He held Emily shut, his whirling mind full of fear down, as he turned to see Max standing at the door, eyes fixed on the danger and ready to act. It was then that Jack knew they were in a race against time, and Max would be their protector through it all. Max's worried look transformed right before everyone's eyes into determination. He stared fixedly at the spreading flames, as if judging what to do next. His protective instinct became sharp and guided him to move. It seemed he could feel the urge, the threat to his family, particularly to Emily, who was closest to companionship. Max cast one final look at Jack and then at Emily. With a deep, resolute breath, he plunged toward the flames, disappearing into the thickening smoke now filling the room. Jack screamed, watching Max's figure vanish into the haze. The heat was becoming unbearable, and the smoke stung his eyes, but all Jack could think about was his brave dog diving into the fire without any moment's hesitation. Every second seemed to him an eternity. The bravery of Max had left Jack breathless, torn between trying to save him and keeping Emily safe. Emily clutched at her father's shirt, wide-eyed and terrified, not understanding the complete peril of their circumstances, yet somehow knowing the seriousness of what was occurring. Jack clutched her tightly to him, whispering reassurances that everything would be all right, though a heavy doubt weighed upon his heart in those excruciating moments, and he couldn't help but feel a helpless gratitude for Max, who had put himself square in the line of fire for their safety. Outside, the fire hissed and spat its malevolent life as it consumed more of the room, casting eerie shadows and filling the air with the acrid smell of burning. Jack's mind raced with questions, each one filled with dread. Would Max make it out what drove him to such bravery? Just as Jack's hope began to waver, he heard a distant faint barking. His heart skipped a beat, the sound rekindling a glimmer of hope that perhaps against all odds Max was still fighting to find his way back. Outside, flashing lights filled the street as the fire trucks arrived, their sirens piercing the night. Firefighters jumped out, gearing up quickly and assessing the fire was swallowing part of the Thompson residence as Jack, holding Emily tight, made for the outdoors, where relief and desperation mingled as he wildly pointed upstairs through the window, trying to explain between sobs that his dog Max was inside. The firefighters nodded gravely, Expressions bespoke the urgency and emotional weight behind Jack's words. Firefighters ran toward the house with hoses ready while others got ready to enter the smoke-filled rooms. Powerless, Jack watched his heart pound as he held Emily close. His mind flashed between memories of Max as a playful, joyful companion and the terrifying image of him, lost somewhere in the thick, consuming smoke. Emily, too, sensed the weight of the moment, her small face buried in her father's chest, whispering quietly, "Will Max be okay, Daddy?" Jack didn't know how to answer. All he could do was hold her tighter, his mind pleading silently that Max would somehow find his way back to them around him. Neighbors began to gather, some whispering words of encouragement, others placed comforting hands on his shoulder. They knew Max too well, his gentle nature and loyalty. The whole community held their collective breath, waiting and hoping, every minute stretching into what felt like an eternity. Minutes ticked by, each heavier than the last. Firefighters vanished into the house, their outlines barely distinguishable through the smoke as they searched for any signs of life. Jack's heart was torn, a painful mix of gratitude over Max's loyalty and fear that he might have sacrificed himself. Just when despair was about to set in, one of the firefighters emerged, and in his arms was a figure covered in soot but unmistakably Max, and he wasn't alone. The crowd gasped at the sight of Max emerging from the smoke, cradled carefully in the firefighter's arms. But there was more. Nestled against Max's chest, hidden in his protective embrace, were several tiny, trembling kittens. Their small bodies were pressed tightly against him, as though they too sensed the safety he offered, even amid the chaos. It was clear that Max hadn't only risked his life to escape the flames, he had stayed behind. These helpless animals had instinctively compelled him to save them. The firefighter gently laid Max down onto the ground, and Jack ran to him, falling onto his knees beside his loyal companion. The fur of Max was singed, and he was coughing soft and low. However, his eyes still had that same unyielding acceptance. Jack's voice trembled as he whispered words of gratitude, stroking his head. It hit him fully, the realization of what Max had done wasn't just an act of loyalty towards his family, but a heroic display of compassion that exceeded everything. They may have envisioned that Emily knelt down, her small hand reaching to touch Max gently. Her face reflected a mix of awe and love as she whispered, "Thank you, Max." Her words were laced with a sincerity and a depth that belied her young age. She leaned down to place a soft kiss on his head, and for a moment, it felt as though the world had gone still around them. The neighbors dried their tears, and even the firefighters who had seen innumerable tragedies and triumphs looked visibly moved. The kittens, too, seemed to understand the impact of Max's bravery. They huddled closer to him, terrified but somehow knowing they were safe. Max looked around laboriously, his exhausted and injured body managing to lick one of the kittens, as if to reassure them that everything would be all right. In that one tender gesture, everyone present witnessed the deep heroism and selflessness animals are capable of, a reminder of unconditional, unadulterated love they bring into our lives. Firefighters fought to put out the remaining flames as the community started a circle around Max in protection. Word of his heroism spread through the kittens he had saved, as onlookers nearby whisper and awe to each other, telling stories of how they'd always known Max was something special, but had never realized just how brave he really was. One by one, they made their way toward the Thompson family, offering a blanket, water, and words of comfort, with quiet gestures revealing the high regard they held in their hearts for Max. The firefighters themselves also looked visibly shaken by what they'd just seen as they marched toward Jack and Emily with a sense of incredulity in their gaze. One of them, a grizzled firefighter, had seen countless rescues, knelt beside Max and shook his head almost in disbelief. "In all my years, I've never seen anything like this," he said softly. "This dog, he didn't just save himself, he saved lives. I think you have a real hero here." Jack's heart swelled with pride and gratitude. He reached out to shake the firefighter's hand. His voice was filled with emotion. "Thank you," he murmured, his eyes glancing down at Max, who was now surrounded by gentle hands and kind words from the crowd. Max was exhausted, his breathing shallow, but there was with a peaceful feeling in his eyes, as if to say he knew he had done something beyond belief. Emily stayed by Max's side, her small hands moving smoothly over his fur, whispering words of love and gratitude, as if trying to convey all that her young heart felt yet could not put into words. The bond that she and Max shared was strong, but after this night, it would be a connection beyond words, an unspoken understanding between child and protector, forever bound by the bravery he showed this night. From that start of terror and uncertainty, the tale had begun to transform. It was no longer a story of survival, but it had grown to a story of courage, love, and sacrifice. In this quiet, serene moment with friends and strangers alike, this Thompson family realized that with all the lives he saved, Max's heroism reminded them all of the power of compassion, of the extraordinary bravery that even the tiniest, most fragile of lives can inspire. In the days that followed, Max's story spread throughout the town. News of his heroism didn't stay confined to their neighborhood alone, with the local newspaper and stories online telling of the hero dog that had risked his life for others. People came from everywhere to thank him and show support by bringing treats for Max and small donations to help with any medical needs he could have. Max became an inspiration, a living testament to the quiet heroism with which animals can inspire. Jack and Emily made sure that Max received the best care, tending to his wounds and making sure he had plenty of rest. They were by his side through every moment of recovery, showering him with love and affection. The kittens, too, had become an unexpected yet cherished part of the family, often curling up beside Max, as if they knew he was their savior. Emily named each of them, and every night she would sit by Max and the kittens, telling them stories, her voice filled with a newfound appreciation for resilience and courage she had witnessed. Neighbors who once passed by with a wave now stopped to inquire about Max, wanting to hear firsthand about the incredible night that had passed. Many brought their pets with them, and to see Max play with those animals instilled an unsaid sense of bonding in the community. The yard of the Thompson family became a place of gathering, a place where people came to share their thankfulness in their own stories of the pets which had touched their lives. On one such evening, when the sun began to set, Jack sat with Max on the porch, observing the mellow shine of the sky. He stroked Max's head, his heart filled with thankfulness and admiration. "I don't think we'll ever be able to thank you enough, boy," Jack said in a hushed voice, as his voice thick with emotion. "You've taught us what it truly means to love and be loyal." Max looked up at him with calm and wise eyes, as if he understood every word of those quiet moments of recovery and reflection when the Thompson family realized they had not only gained a hero, but recaptured an even deeper connection with one another and the community. Max reminded them all that sometimes the least of the acts which call for bravery and compassion leave a deeper mark. As Max progressed towards healing himself, the Thompson family found themselves reflecting on a deeper impact his actions had on them. Jack largely sat in the silence of thought and was still stunned by the bravery of Max. He couldn't remove the picture of Max being engulfed in the flames, driven by a drive beyond simple loyalty. This was not a protection instinct of a pet. This was pure, selfless bravery. Jack wondered how many humans would have acted the same had they been in Max's shoes, risk everything for lives they barely knew. Very often, conversations among the family members drifted to Max's heroic act. Emily, with all her child curiosity, would ask them if that only deepened their appreciation. "Daddy, do you think Max knew he was going to save the kitten?" she asked one evening. Jack paused, considering her words. "I think he did, sweetheart. Max has always looked out for us. I think he felt it was his duty, just like he does with you." Max had become more than just a family pet. He was now a symbol of protection and love, an example of the powerful connection that could exist between species. Jack found himself talking about Max's bravery with friends and colleagues, noticing how each retelling seemed to touch them on a deeper level. People started viewing Max as a harbinger of the good things in life, there to reassure hope and strength in bad times. The local firefighters, many of whom had been a part of that night's rescue, often visited, sharing their own tales of bravery and sacrifice. One visibly shaken fireman shared with Jack how he had been struggling to bear with the burden of his job and the many lives he had tried to save yet failed to. Max reminded me why I do this, he said tearfully with a grateful smile. He proved to me that every life, no matter how small, was worth fighting for. In those reflective moments, the Thompson family knew there had been a ripple caused by Max's actions. The dog had saved lives, but more importantly, he brought renewed hope and purpose to several people around him. Max's heroism was not about just one courageous act, reminding one of how much difference compassion and courage can make, touching lives in ways they hadn't imagined. As time went by, Max's bond with his family deepened. The kittens, once cowering and clinging to Max for protection, had grown into active, inquisitive companions. Still ever by his side, Emily loved them, laughing frequently as they bounced around her in the yard as Max watched over them like some benign guardian. The family decided to keep the kittens too, feeling they were a part of the legacy of that unforgettable night. The whole town came to support Max with a small ceremony for him. Small, yet sincere neighbors congregated in the park to celebrate his heroism. Children came along with homemade signs, drawing pictures of Max with hearts and tiny flames, symbolizing his bravery. A few local officials were in attendance and presented Max with a hero dog medal, a symbol of the gratitude felt by all who had witnessed or heard of his courageous act. Jack and Emily proudly stood beside Max as he received his medal. The community was clapping, their cheers sounding out with real admiration and respect for the Thompsons. It was a humbling moment for them as they looked down at Max, who was nonchalant as if to say, feeling the honor but not asking for any recognition. Max simply sat beside his family, his eyes searching the crowd with quiet contentment, ever watchful, ever aware. As the event began to slow down, people started coming to the Thompsons with stories of their own pets. Stories of loyalty and love, which mirrored the connection they saw between Max and his family. It was a day that left an enduring mark on everyone present, celebrating not only the bravery of Max, but the resilience and loyalty that animals bring into our lives. The simple ceremony turned into a reminder of how deeply these companions touch our hearts, their love pure and steadfast. The Thompson family that day left the park in the deepest sense of gratitude, not only because of what Max had done, but because he brought the community together in such a feeling of unity and thankfulness. Max had shown them all that heroes come in many forms, and sometimes they are found in those that walk beside us on four paws. Their loyalty, quiet, yet unbreakable. That evening, as the family inside the quiet of their home, Max lay surrounded by his family and the kittens he had saved. It was warm, full of a deep, reassuring sense of peace and love. Emily leaned her head against the side of Max, whose fur she continued to stroke softly, while Jack and his wife sat quietly, eyes wide with awe. The house was whole, as if the courage of Max had not only saved lives but also stitched them all together in a bond now greater than ever before. In the half-dark, Jack considered Max with memories of all that had transpired. This dog, who once in their life was a playful little puppy, had grown into a true protector. Max had faced danger with unflinching bravery, guided not by expectation or reward, but by love and instinctive, unbreakable loyalty that saw them through the darkest of nights. It was to remind one that sometimes the greatest acts of heroism don't come from the grand gestures, but from the quiet, steady love that stays with us, even in our hardest moments. As the kittens snuggled up beside him, Max began to lick each one gently. His movements were tender, protective. It was as if he knew that he had changed not only his family's life, but also everyone's life had touched. Jack felt his chest tighten with the gratitude and pride within him, knowing that in Max they found a true friend and a hero who taught them about the power of resilience and love. The story of the family with Max was a beautiful testament of human as hard as steel, shining bright between humans and animals. The heroism he extended was far beyond what any of them could have visualized and left an indelible legacy to be continued in their hearts and in the hearts of those who heard his story. And as they sat together that night, surrounded by love and gratitude, The Thompson family knew Max had given them a gift, one that would stay with them, reminding them every day of the courage and loyalty that make life truly extraordinary.